next level is I not only care about the customers, I want the shareholders to get value out of this. They've invested in our company and I want them to get a return. The next level is I want to have an impact on this industry. I want to change the way that this industry or our country, but some larger group derives value out of this. I want to be able to make an impact. The next one is even more grand. I want to serve humanity. We're trying to do something that will provide value to all human beings. And the next thing is the world. We could say all sentient beings, but here we're talking about, I want to change the world. We want to do something that's really grand. We're out to make an impact. And many of the nonprofits that focus in the ESG world are focused at that level. It's the humanity and world level. It's certainly not the me, family, and tribal view of this. So I do assess the culture of an organization that we're going to work with or people that we're going to work with, and certainly the person running the business, the CEO. We have to look at the focus. Is the focus for that organization or that leader individually focused, or is it more collectively focused? Now we have the value scale. And on the left side of this, the values are non-existent, opportunistic, variable, opaque. They change like the wind. On the right side are precisely defined, aspirational, universally accepted as high ideals, and immutable. We don't change them. These are ethically driven values, and these are purely outcome-driven values. So where do we want to be? And somewhere in the middle are the areas where I tend to give people a break, and that is they don't quite know. They've never expressed their values or their focus. The values aren't clearly defined. They're typically part of a historical pattern. And my belief or my hope with most of these companies where it's ill-defined or it's part of their history is that they're evolving with good intent. And I look to see if I can push them up this scale or push them to the right to get them defined. So what I would ask you to consider is, where do you like to do business? And this is the realm as a consultant that I focus on when I'm assessing companies to do business with. And by the way, as a CEO, I drive toward the top right. And I drive to hire people who understand that top right quadrant well. And the belief here is that the highest probability of outstanding performance and the ability to create that vision and the adoption of my proxy concepts and constructive collaboration where you can work really well together and build objective empirical assessments of what's going on exists in that top right quadrant. So it's up to us to either build that type of focus and values environment, or it's up to us to get rid of the pieces that don't fit within that. And if people violate that, if they're down at the bottom themselves individually, and they're focused on me, or they change their values based upon the opportunity, I'm willing to stretch the truth. I'm willing to exaggerate where we are. That really doesn't play well to a common definition or assessment of outstanding performance. I am so committed to this that every salesperson who works with me is given this instruction. And that is, I want you to tell the prospect or the customer exactly what you would want to hear if you were in their position. Tell them every issue that you can think of that would cause them risk and any degree of pain. Because if you can do business that way, you will have built a lasting relationship. Don't bend the truth. Bedell's development of the OSP process was based upon what he somewhat irreverently calls God's curve. And he said, if you look at any distribution of performance, whether it's athletic prowess or the performance of a company, ROI, return on equity. If you look at financial success of individuals or financial success of companies, or you look at sports teams, if you take any large population, it falls on a normal distribution. And that is, the overwhelming percentage of people are average. It's just the way that it works, right? That's what the normal distribution proves. And up one standard deviation, you get pretty good performance, and down one level, marginal, but they're getting by. What Bedell struggled with is looking at companies over and over and over and finding that no matter what he did, it was really rare that he could find companies that were up at the top and that they were able to repeat that. And his belief was that outstanding performance is not hitting the lottery, where you suddenly come out with a great product and everyone wants it and it's a roaring success, but you don't have the second trick. Or your company winds up with a crisis, which every company does at some point, and you can't recover. The ones that really are three standard deviations out, the outstanding performers, are the companies that are able to repeat that no matter what the obstacle, no matter how difficult it gets. They then reinvent, recreate, and they're up there again. They figured out a way to develop a culture and a method to understand what it means to define outstanding performance over and over and over again and get their teams aligned to achieve that. The second observation on this is that most objective setting processes are negotiated. That is, as the CEO, a manager comes into you and says, here are my goals for the coming year. And then as the CEO, you say, no, I want you to do more. And they say, no, I want to do less. And no, I don't want to do that. And you negotiate it, because what's happening? They're trying to get their bonus. They're trying to protect their team. They don't want to fail. And the focus then brings you to some level of mediocrity. You didn't ask the question, how do you attain outstanding performance based upon what the market demands, based upon what your competitors are doing? You're starting with, what can I get done this year? And what Bedell said is that these negotiated goals are what puts us into trouble. We never, if we move from average, we might move one standard deviation, get lucky, and we might do something good, or we might slip a bit and become marginal. But we sure as heck are not going to get to 3 standard deviations with a unified team and objective measures and having defined exactly where we need to be. We're not going to get there. And this vast abyss of mediocrity is what consumes most of the companies that are out there. 65 to 75% of the population is average. And if we push it out one more level to the second standard deviation, poor and commendable, we have 92 or 93% of the organizations. We want to be at the top, and we want to attract people who want to be at the top. And we want to define a program that doesn't kill people getting to the top, but inspires them to get to the top. That's the objective. So Bedell said, I want to focus here. And now the goal is that if, in fact, we are focused on 3 standard deviations out, doing something that is really outstanding, by design, we are taking on more risk. And at the other end of the spectrum, it's called an outstanding failure. And how do you decide what is an outstanding failure? You punch out and go home. The business is over. You've completely destroyed your reputation. You've destroyed the economic value. You've destroyed your confidence of your investors. Everything disintegrates. That's an outstanding failure. Bedell said the hardest thing he had to do was to determine what is outstanding performance? How do I determine what that is? So I would ask you, what is outstanding performance? And typically I get answers like, profitability, highest growth in the industry, greatest customer satisfaction, a team that really works well together. It's usually on those basis of measures. And Bedell himself had difficulty figuring that out. So let's go to the next level here and talk about what it means. First, the conventional approach. In the conventional approach to doing any type of operational plan, we typically start with, what do we consider to be the most important goals of the company? This is what goes on in company after company after company. And I'm sure you've been associated with companies that do this. What do we think is most important for next year? Or for the next 3 years or 5 years? And the next one is where the compromise starts. Given where we are, what's the best that we could achieve if we really stretch ourselves? And the starting point is, where are we today? And how far can we go? It's not what has to be done. And then we compromise again. We say, well, what's the most that we could expect of the other people that we're dependent on, the other departments? And because I know that, the technology group, they're overwhelmed already. And the finance team, they're really struggling, and they haven't been able to hire enough people. So we can't really expect to have that system implemented. And the markets are down right now. So if we push it too far, we're not going to really achieve what we thought. So we trade down again. And then after we've traded down in our own minds, we go and we start to negotiate department by department, because we have dependencies. And we try to manage expectations to obtain our bonus. So knowing that we're dependent on other people, we bring the expectations down again in those negotiations to say, they're not giving us a lot of confidence here. They are not willing to do it. Therefore, I have to change my goals and lower them. And then we assign due dates and accountabilities. Typically, they're teams. We say, this team is responsible. And then we assign them high, medium, and low, which means absolutely nothing. I've seen little distinction between people making trade-offs on high, medium, and low goals for a year. So how does this methodology differ? Well, first of all, we raise the bar. In managing for outstanding performance, we first define outstanding performance. And back to Bedell's struggle. What Bedell said is that I couldn't even think of a way of monetizing or measuring this. He said, I finally came up with a definition that I thought would apply to any situation for defining outstanding success. And he said, here's what I want you to think about, is I want you to imagine the people who are your judges. And who are the judges for your performance? Well, surely they're your shareholders. Surely they're your customers, but they're also you. It's your peers, it's your employees, it's your managers, it's your CEO. It's all of you. It's all of the constituents that you work with. Bedell said, I want you to imagine your judges pounding their fist on the table when you tell them what you are going to accomplish at the end of 3 years. You say, this is what's going to happen. And I want you to imagine them pounding their fist on the table and saying, that's outstanding. If you accomplish that, that is great. That is an outstanding level of performance. Now, what's the risk here? What's the risk if you push that too far? And almost always I get the correct answer, which is they won't believe you. They'll think that you are off in left field. You don't have credibility. There's no way that you can do that. And you become somebody who's chasing dreams that are just not possible. So you walk a very fine line here. Your goal is to define something that your judges will look at and say, that's outstanding. And you know what? I believe you can do it. That seems achievable. That is what we're looking for in the definition of what we're going to do.